All right, everyone, we have breaking news regarding the U.S. Supreme Court and Trump's travel ban, which had an injunction placed upon it by the federal court system, possibly in an unconstitutional manner. That injunction has been lifted. Trump's travel ban now largely goes into effect. 9-0 decision, actually. It wasn't even a partisan decision. Implied, I suppose, that the court's probably going to rule on the side of Trump when it takes the case up fully in October. I would assume. There's like a 90% chance that they will. It's clearly an executive privilege to be able to issue such a temporary ban for security reasons in a limited fashion. They did, however, retain two things aside. There are two exceptions. One would be a foreigner who has what they call a bona fide relationship with a U.S. citizen. We're talking, they're in a steady relationship, they have children or something like that, and that makes sense. That actually clears up one of my own concerns, which was, does the government have the right to bereave a U.S. citizen of a spouse, someone they're in a relationship with, a child, and so forth? Does it have the right to act in such a way that it bereaves them of that relationship when the other individual has not done anything specifically violating U.S. law? That would be a concern. The other were academic settings. For instance, students who have come here, foreign exchange students, they're on an academic learning visa or something. So this is actually a pretty good decision. It's 9-0, so nobody can complain. It was partisan. That's important. It clearly shows that the court is probably going to rule in favor of Trump on his ability to institute such a temporary and limited travel ban. I would like to point out all this hype over it being a ban on Islamic immigration doesn't make sense because it's 6 countries out of an Islamic world that contains far more countries, so it certainly doesn't ban Islamists from coming to the United States. Number 2, there are people who are not Muslims in these 6 countries, so that argument never really made sense. I suppose it was just implied that Trump must be an Islamophobe because these nations that happen to be have problems with terrorism happen to be in the Islamic world. Well, it's a no-brainer. And part of that's not these nations' fault because Western influence in the region has devolved into proxy wars primarily, causing many of the problems there. But at the same time, you do have to temporarily ban some of these immigrants, really, while we do work on our immigration system because it's clearly not working. It's just fairly obvious, I think, to anyone looking at the situation. The status quo doesn't work. They've eliminated catch and release now, which is good. Otherwise, everything else remains up in the air. And really, these lower courts issuing these injunctions constantly, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm glad that the Supreme Court did rule on this, will take the case up. They have temporarily acted in Trump's favor, mostly. But the two big concerns that I had, really, which was people, what if someone's a legit student? What if someone's in a legit relationship? The court just clarified that, so I couldn't be happier with the decision. No, I don't think if you got some like girlfriend in Pakistan or something, does the U.S. government have the right to tell you no? You'll have to go over there in order to meet with her. It just doesn't make sense. If there's no reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing, who fucking cares? We're talking about trying to stop people who are going to blow themselves up, not trying to stop people who are in a relationship. I think there's a difference. Unanimous decision. Extremely important. Although I think 2 of the justices said they had a little bit of a problem with making the decision at all because they're like, oh, there's going to be a flood of litigants now because people will be arguing over what constitutes a bona fide relationship. That is one problem because you gotta, when you're talking about the government, the definitions that they give to things tend to be really arbitrary. They love legalese. They love lawyer speak. They don't like to use common sense. Now, everything has to be very, very, very legalistic in form. That will be a little bit of a problem. I guess we'll see what happens in October when the court actually takes up the case fully and then looks at it and decides what's going to happen. And of course, Anthony Kennedy may no longer be on the court by that point. It might be 8 justices making the decision, or it may be another Trump appointee in Anthony Kennedy's position. If it's the latter, then Trump will certainly prevail. If not, if it's an 8-justice court, he probably does anyway. It'll be Roberts deciding the decision essentially to break the stalemate. That's about all. Peace out.